Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a third-party Transformer review for you. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the X-TRANSBOTS number 86 Securitron Scout Jocund. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That is the way Google said to pronounce it, and according to Google, the definition of Jocund is happy or cheerful, so there you go. Either way, this is X-TRANSBOT's take on the Protectobot Groove. And as you know, Groove was one of the combiners for Defensor, and much like that, the Jocund figure here is one of the 5 figures for X-TRANSBOT's upcoming Securitron combiner, which we may get someday. Right now we only have 2 figures, which is Jocund and Fuzz. But let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging. And right up top you have X-TRANSBOTS Master X Series. You've got some nice artwork there. He is number 86 Securitron Scout Jocund, and then you have this really fancy lettering over here, and it says, "Men make war to get attention. All killing is an expression of self-hate." That is deep. I'm going to say it. That is deep. Alright, on the back, you've got that nice G1 inspired artwork, and you have his little G1 inspired card down here, and I'll bring that in, and feel free to pause that if you want to read it. And you have all of his specs over here, just like the old G1 guys. And over here on the side, you have Master X Series, you have another nice bit of artwork, you have that quote, and then you have the X-TRANSBOTS logo down there. Alright, and I think that pretty much is it. You've got that on this side, and on this side you've got some product information. Alright, so that is it for the packaging. So let's go ahead and crack that box open and see what came inside that package. Behold, laid out before you is everything that came inside that package. Normally we would start with a little sheet of warnings, but this is a third-party figure. You don't get a little sheet of warnings, so we'll just jump right to the instruction booklet. And then you do get 3 firearms and 3 extra heads. So you do get a pretty decent amount of accessories with this guy. So we'll start with the guns over here. We'll start with his main weapon. So this is his main pistol here. And as you can see, it's just painted in silver. Not a lot of detail on there. What little bit it has, though, looks pretty good. And it does match the aesthetic of the figure. So it looks pretty good. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more paint on there if they were going to take the time to paint it. But overall, it's not bad. And then these are his 2 shin guns in bot mode, and we'll see that here shortly. They go down on his shins, down by his feet, or in motorcycle mode, they'll be up by the seat. And they look pretty good. They've got good sculpted detail inside. It's just this molded black finish, so you can't really differentiate a lot of detail on there. But they definitely add to the figure. When you have them on in both bot mode and the motorcycle mode, they look really good there, and they are exactly the same other than just being mirrors of each other, a left and a right. Alright, and moving on to those heads, he does come with those 3 extra heads. So this is the head he was shipped with, or the one that he had on when he came assembled. But these are the extra ones that were in that box. And here we have his emotionless, contemplative face, where he's just taking it all in. And over here we have his other emotionless, contemplative face where he's taking it all in. But it is a little bit different, sculpted a little bit differently there. So kind of a skinnier face, whereas this one is a little more broad. And finally, we do get a face with some emotion. So he's got something going on there. I'm not sure what, but yeah, he's growling. There you go. All right, so that is it for everything that came inside the box except for Jocund himself. So we will go ahead now and bring him in for his close-up. Here he is, the bot we've all been waiting for, Jocund, a.k.a. Groove, a.k.a. Jocund, however you want to say it. But this is the guy. So let's go ahead and take a look at him. And we'll start up here with this other relatively emotionless, taking it all in face sculpt. But I think it looks pretty good. And there are a couple different styles. I know I'm skipping around real quick, but I do want to point out that there are a couple different configurations that you can have for his backpack, for his motorcycle. So you do have this configuration, and then you also have the alternate configuration, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to open the sheet here and I'll show you that other configuration. So in the instructions sheet, these are the two configurations that you can have in the backpack. My preference is the one on the right. I just think this looks a lot better than just having the front end of a motorcycle hanging off. At least this looks like something happened. So, but yeah, when you are in that configuration, you do have these shocks or these bars that stick up right there, and then you can see that instrument cluster back there. And coming down to the chest. So the theme with this guy is not a lot of detail. I think they're going for, you know, a little bit of toon accuracy here. So he's not incredibly detailed, but the sculpt work that they have on there looks good. A lot of the pieces in here in this guy are die cast. The paint, for the most part, looks great. I don't have any major issues with the paint at all. So overall, I think he came out looking pretty good. And then coming down here to the legs. So this is where you do see a little bit of that transformation. It's not the cleanest inside here, but for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. And then I do really enjoy the accents and then this chrome piping that comes down. And we'll see it in articulation, but I do want to point it out now. A nice little touch right here in the knee. As you bend the knee, that chrome pipe continues. So you get that continuity of the look of the pipe throughout the range of that knee motion, which I think is really cool. And over here on the side, you have the police, and then you get down to those feet. And those feet are nothing to write home about. The one thing I will say is they are nice and big. They make this guy incredibly steady. So I'm not going to complain about the way they look, because from a functional standpoint, they keep this guy balanced, and I really do appreciate that. So coming up here to the side, take a look up underneath here. For the most part, everything compacts in nicely. No major issues. He does have that backpack, but really in this configuration, I think it minimizes it, and it really adds to his overall look. And for those arms, not a lot going on there. All right, and then coming around to the back, which we've already seen some of this. You do have that backpack right there. And then coming up underneath, just for the most part, nice clean lines all the way around. It falls apart a little bit down here in the feet and the legs, but not enough to detract. And especially when you have, so these are the tabs for those guns. When you have those guns on, it really adds another level of depth to this guy. So overall detail and the aesthetic of this guy, I think he looks really good in his bot mode. I don't have any major complaints there, but let's go ahead and talk about the articulation in this mode. So we'll start up here with the head. So you do get that far up and you get that far down. No side to side, but you do have limited head movement. So as far as rotation goes, that's as far as you can go for either side. So you're not going to take this all the way around. Now you do pop those heads completely off. So when you're changing those heads out, you just have that right there. You're just going to pop that off, stick it in. So I don't know if I've got some kind of a hard stop on this one, but I think that's enough range for me, so no major complaints. And then at the shoulders, first thing we'll talk about is he does have a butterfly joint, which is nice and good range of motion on that butterfly joint. And if you needed to in a pinch, you could lift up this transformation peg right there, and then you could get even more. So it can get kind of obscene just how much range of motion you have right there in that shoulder if you want it. Now, lifting the arms up, they'll come up that far. They will go a full 360 around. And then at the elbow, it's under 90 degrees. I would have liked to have seen more range there, but definitely not a deal breaker. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of an elbow bend there. And then you do get bicep rotation all the way around. And then at those hands, you get wrist rotation. And if you wanted to in a pinch, you could bring them down like that. I mean, this is for transformation, but hey, desperate times, if you want to get a nice dynamic pose, you're just going to have to do that, I guess. And then as far as the finger motion, these three fingers are fused together, and this finger is on its own. There's only one joint just right here on this tab, so you can get this kind of motion for the one finger or for the three fingers, or just bring it in for the fist. All right. Now, down to the waist, he has waist rotation. He can go all the way around, and he does have an ab crunch, which is great. Look at this. Look at that ab crunch. Fantastic. So yeah, you can have him looking down and saying, "Hey, what's up, little guy?" to whoever the little guy is. All right, so now coming down to the hips. Great range of motion in these hips as well, so you can get great splits. You are not going to get a Van Damme out of this guy, but you can get him in some pretty sweet dance moves, no doubt about it. All right, and as far as kicking forward, get ready for that high kick. Look at that. Fantastic. And for the back, he'll go this far back before he starts running into himself, but if you swing that leg out, you can get about that far. So the range of motion in these legs, no doubt, more than what you'll ever use. All right. Now he has thigh rotation, but it's, as far as I can tell, it's kind of limited. I don't want to take it much further than what it feels like those hard stops are right there, but that's more than enough to get him in some nice poses. And then down here at the knee, which we saw earlier, the pipe continuity, but the knee bend is a little subpar. It's not enough to be detrimental to the dynamic posing, but it sure would have been nice if they could have engineered some kind of a double knee there or something that would have at least gotten him to 90 degrees on that bend. So I'm wanting a little bit in the elbows and the knees, but for the most part, they'll do what you need them to do. And then down here on these feet, you don't get any up or down on the feet. You do get ankle tilt in about that far, and then you do have these toes and the heels where you can move these however you need to get those poses. So yeah, overall, I think articulation is good. I think the aesthetic of this guy in bot mode is good. So yeah, I mean, high praise for this guy so far. So let's go ahead and we'll get him accessorized up. We'll take a look and see how he looks with his accessories on and maybe a different head. And here we see Jocund fully accessorized and in an action dynamic pose. And yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I like him. He looks good here. So as far as the accessories go, you have the shin guns that I was talking about earlier, or the calf guns, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, so those go on either leg. And I think they do a good job of accentuating that lower body and just giving him a little bit of extra firepower. And speaking of firepower, of course, he gets his pistol, so it doesn't look like much to write home about, but I kind of think of it along the lines of the noisy cricket from Men in Black. It's a small gun, but it's going to pack a big punch. And once he comes back around, we'll take a look. I did go ahead and swap those heads, and now he has on his the most emotional face that he has, and you can see that as he comes around. So he's kind of got that mouth open, and he's kind of growling at whatever he's shooting at. So yeah, I mean, the accessories aren't the greatest, but they really go well with the figure, and when you get him in a nice dynamic pose, they really accentuate this guy, and I think he looks great. So there you go. So now that we've got the accessories, kind of showing those off, got those out of the way, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into the robot comparisons. I'm not going to do a transformation in this video. I'm trying to pare the length of my videos down, so I think I'm going to probably start doing the transformations as separate videos because I can get a little windy when I'm reviewing these guys. So we're going to get into the bot mode comparisons and go from there. All right, so for our first bot mode comparison, we see the X-TRANSBOTS Jocund next to the G1 Prowl. Much to my shame, I do not have any G1 Protectobots in my collection at all. I don't have any of them. So this is the closest I'm going to be able to do from a G1 standpoint. I figure, hey, Jocund / Groove is a police officer and Prowl is a police officer, so there you go. Moving on to our next comparison, I figured that since Jocund is a motorcycle, I would bring in some other motorcycle transformers as a point of comparison. So here we have Elita 1 from Studio Series 52. For our next comparison, this is RC from the Transformers Prime line. Next up, we see Jocund next to Mr. Junkion himself. This is the Studio Series 86 Wreck-Gar. And for our final bot mode comparison, here you see the two X-TRANSBOT Securitron figures that we have so far. So, of course, you have on the left Jocund, which is their version of Groove, and on the right you have Fuzz, which is their version of Streetwise. And someday soon, 3 more of these guys will come out, and they'll combine to form the X-TRANSBOTS version of Defensor. So something to look forward to there. But yeah, seeing these 2 teammates together is really cool. And I will have to point out that this figure is leaps and bounds better than this figure. This guy has his good points, and I really want to like him, but it's hard to like him. Just put it that way. But this guy over here, great. That wraps up the bot mode comparisons. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and get him in his motorcycle mode and take a look at him there. Now that we have Jocund in his alt mode, let's go ahead and take a look at those details. And we'll start up here at the front. And yeah, this looks good. I mean, that is a good looking motorcycle. Nice paint apps, nice headlights right there, rubber tires. You've got drilled out brake rotors. He is number 80. Decent amount of chrome on this guy, and you've got the 5-pointed star right up there. You've got little footrests for the driver. He is the police, so be careful what you do. And coming around here to the back, you do have him decked out with those brake lights on the saddlebags and then on the tail as well. And you've got those nice exhaust tips back there. Coming around to this side, pretty similar to the other side, just don't have a number 80 over here, but you do have a little bit of nice detail. And coming up here and taking a look inside, you do have an instrument cluster. So you do have a good amount of detail right there. And then coming down here to the seat, trying to get a good view here. Plug that seat back in. And you've got nice texturing on that seat as well. And even on the handlebars up here, chromed out brake handles. And you get your little gas cap right there. So all around looks really good. This is him from the bottom. So from the bottom, he kind of doesn't look like a robot. I mean, I guess you do have robot hands here. Now, I have these extended a little bit because I'm using them kind of as kickstands to keep them from tipping over. But you can fold these in and make them less conspicuous. But then you do have a little bit of half of a visible head syndrome going on right there, but it's not too bad. But yeah, I think overall it looks pretty good. Now, as far as articulation goes in this mode, there's not really much. I mean, you can turn this wheel up front a few degrees either direction. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the articulation goes. But yeah, overall detail on this guy, he looks wonderful in his alt mode. This guy is a really good looking motorcycle. So let's go ahead and talk about his weapons real quick and his weapon storage, and then we'll get into some comparisons. And for those 3 weapons that he comes with, I can really only find storage for 2 of them. So I can't find storage in vehicle mode anywhere for this guy. So if anyone has any suggestions or knows where we can store this, be sure to let me know in the comments, because I hate not being able to store my weapons in an alt mode. If I can get away with it, I'd love to be able to do so. Now, as far as the other 2 weapons, these are pretty straightforward. You just have these little slots on the back, and then you're going to plug those right in. You have these tabs on each side of the motorcycle, so you're just going to line those up, and you're going to plug them in. So you get one, if I can line it up, and then you get the other one. Let's flip him around. And we'll plug that one in. And there you go. And he looks good with those. I mean, that does not at all detract from the vehicle mode. I think if anything, it enhances it. So he just looks like an armored up police motorcycle now. I think that actually looks really cool. So I very much enjoy that. So, you know, I guess wish list would be, if only I could find somewhere to put this. So, all right. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the comparison so we can take a look at this guy against some other vehicles. Unfortunately, I do not have any G1 Protectobots in my collection. It was just a set of figures that I never collected when I was a kid. So I'm going to go with the nearest thing here. I'm going to go with my G1 Prowl because, you know, at least he was a police officer, and Might as well bring in a fellow police officer here to do a comparison. So yeah, this is Jocund next to the G1 Prowl. And for our next comparison, this is the Studio Series 52 Elita 1. She was one of the 3-pack, the RC Chromia Elita 1 3-pack for the Studio Series. Next comparison is the Transformers Prime RC. And this will be our last motorcycle mode comparison. So on the left is the X-TRANSBOTS Jocund, aka Groove, next to the Studio Series 86 Wreck-Gar, so you can see how those two compare. Wreck-Gar's got a little bit of size on him. And for our final alt mode comparison, here we see the two X-TRANSBOT Securitron teammates together. So on the left you have X-TRANSBOTS Jocund, and on the right you have the X-TRANSBOTS Fuzz, who eventually, when the rest of their teammates will come out, will be able to have a combined mode for the X-TRANSBOTS version of Defensor, which someday that'll be really cool. And just for fun, one final comparison here. This is the X-TRANSBOTS Jocund next to the screen capture of the G1 Groove from the Transformers cartoon, and you can see just how good of a job X-TRANSBOTS has done here in capturing that look. So job well done. Alright, that wraps up alt mode comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. Alright gang, so let's talk about the X-TRANSBOTS Jocund. In short, I will say that I think this guy more than makes up for the shortcomings that we saw in Fuzz. This is a good solid figure, and at least for my copy, he's high quality, feels sturdy, die-cast parts, decent engineering, great looks in his bot mode, and fantastic looks in his vehicle mode. And I'm happy that I added him to my collection, and frankly, the more that I play with this guy, the more I like him. So that being said, let's go ahead and try to quantify him a little bit, and we'll start, as we always do, with the aesthetics, the overall look of this guy. As I just mentioned, that alt mode, that motorcycle mode, looks great. He does not at all scale well with other figures. I mean, it's a ginormous motorcycle compared to other Masterpiece figures, but they had to do that in order for the robot mode to be the right size. So taking scale out of the picture, this is just a beautiful, lovely motorcycle mode, and I love it. Robot mode, yeah, he's not bad. The robot mode is definitely weaker than his alt mode, but even that being said, he looks good on the shelf, and he is fun to play with, and really no major complaints as far as looks go there. So for aesthetics, I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10. Now, moving on to overall articulation, you want for very little with this figure as far as articulation goes. You get not only the waist swivel, but you get that ab crunch, and it's a fantastic ab crunch. Good range of motion in the arms, in those hips. I mean, you can do lots of great things with those legs. He's limited in his elbows and his knees. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more range of motion in the elbows and the knees, but you could still get this guy in some fantastic dynamic poses. And like I said, you really want for very little as far as articulation goes in this figure. So for articulation, I'm giving this guy a 9 out of 10. Now, moving on to the accessories. Yeah, they're okay. For this price point, for this level of figure, you get those two guns that go on his legs or on the seat in alt mode, and then of course you get his pistol, and then you get those 3 extra heads, all to varying degrees relatively emotionless, but it's nice that they included them. I would have liked to have seen, I always say this, and I'm going to say it again, I would have liked to have seen blast effects. I mean, I think that makes a world of difference. I mean, imagining a pose like this with a blast effect coming out of that gun, you'd have me. 100% you would have me. So overall accessories, like I say, I think for this price point, they're okay. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on accessories, and that may be a little bit of a stretch, but he's a good enough figure. I'm giving him that 8 out of 10. Moving on to overall quality. I have no paint defects. I don't have any defects in the molding or the manufacture. He does everything that he's supposed to do. He came with everything that he was supposed to come with. So no major issues there at all as far as quality goes. Hopefully that's the same for your copy. My only major complaints, well, they're not even major complaints. My only complaints really are that his right ankle and the ab crunch are a little looser than I would have liked them to have been. Don't get me wrong, they're not loose. They're looser than I would have preferred. I would have liked them, nice and tight, but they're just a little bit loose. The nice thing is with these figures, if you've got the right screwdriver, you can get in there, you can tighten those up, and you've got nice tight joints again. So no major complaints there. Overall quality on this guy, I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. And moving on to our last point, overall value. This is always the most subjective one. And I will say that because this is a third-party masterpiece figure, he is not inexpensive. I got this guy from Big Bad Toy Store, and it was a pre-order, and my price was $104 US. It's kind of on the expensive side, but you get so much die cast, and this guy feels so solid and so good in the hand. His transformation is fun. It's easy, almost intuitive, and he's got a great shelf presence, and that alt mode is just mind-blowing. So for me, I think overall he's a good value. He's definitely a better value than Fuzz, his teammate, was. I think Fuzz has a lot of problems, and I think he's a little bit less of a value. So overall, I'm going to give this guy an overall value of 8 out of 10. So that brings us to a grand total out of a possible 50 points. Jocund has 42 out of 50 points, which puts him at an 84%. So this guy is an easy recommendation for me, particularly if you are looking forward to that combiner mode. If you want to get that third-party Defensor, which I'm looking forward to someday having. So hopefully these figures will keep getting better. The remaining 3 that are coming out, I'm looking forward to them. Hopefully the quality and the overall design and engineering will continue to improve. And I think if Jocund here is any indication of that, I think we have good things to look forward to on that. So with that, we're going to wrap up the review. As I always say, can't state just enough how much we appreciate all the support. If you haven't already done so, be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these guys. I'd love to hear back from you. And don't tease me too hard about not having G1 Protectobots in my collection. So with that, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Until we see you in the next review, take care.